Welcome to Corrective Consciousness, episode 62, the podcast about our lives and love of pop culture. I'm your host, VyseTheBold, and this is...
Lotus Prince.
And OldManStompy.
So, Dan, a.k.a. Pyro Jack Frost, is still in Asia. So, I don't know if he's gone from Hong Kong to Japan quite yet. But we are eagerly awaiting here what his adventures are. Mm-hmm. In the meantime, we have a second-rate replacement.
It's me. I'm
OldManStompy. So I can confirm that Pyro is in fact in Japan, and I know this because my wife is stalking Pyro's girlfriend on Google Plus. If you turn on location sharing and they have GPS active on their phone, you can see where they are. So she's been following them and their travelogue and looking at all the historical sites, because we have our own Japan trip coming up in October, so you'll have to have a second-rate replacement for me. So a third-rate replacement for Pyro, I suppose, in a few weeks.
No, anything else is better.
Literally anything. A rotting fucking corpse would be better.
Smells better.
Ew. You sound like my wife.
Nice. With friends like these, you don't need enemies. Well, having said that, with all the vitriol out of the way, let's move on to the first segment. Why don't you start it off, OldManStompy?
Okay, so I still play Final Fantasy XIV, and in fact, it takes up the majority of my time, gaming, most of the week. I don't really have anything interesting to report, except that I'm still grinding away at the Yokai Watch event, and I believe when I complained about how it was, absolutely hellacious last week, I had completed, the grinding to get 3 of the 13 weapons that you get from this quest, culminating in, a unique mount, which is the exact same as the mount you get earlier in the game, but it glows. It kind of looks like... And it kind of looks like one of those little, ponies that you can ride outside the grocery store for 25 cents, except
Nice.
It's a Yokai Watch character. So I can't even say that it's, really awesome that I would want to ride around in this and, brag to everybody else.
You
But
may
it's
not
just kinda
think it's
funny.
awesome now, but you'll be able to sell it for millions when the event is closed and people want that mount.
Unfortunately, it's untradeable, so I can't even do that.
When you get bored of your Final Fantasy XIV account, you can trade your account for millions.
I can sell the whole account, to people who really like Yokai Watch and looking like an idiot.
Yes.
So this is one of the many reasons why I can't play a game like that, because it would bug the shit out of me if I missed out on something that I just could not ever get ever again.
So
Yeah.
let's remember the reason this event returned was because it was proposed as a grindy event by the level 5 CEO, and it was so grindy that even he couldn't finish it, and he asked them to bring it back so that he could.
That's freaking nuts.
So I guess the only other thing to report on Final Fantasy XIV is that we watched, it turns out there's a Netflix show called Final Fantasy XIV Dad of Light.
What?
I thought that was a joke in the show notes. Dad of Light. I thought it was a pun on something.
No, actually, it's not a joke at all. It's a 7-episode Netflix series. I mean, I think it was originally, it aired on Japanese television, but Netflix picked it up for distribution in America. It's based on a blog post where a new salaryman, some guy in his 20-somethings, bought his dad, who had just retired, a PS4 and a copy of Final Fantasy XIV, and he used the game to bond with his dad.
Huh.
They couldn't have thought of a better title, like Generations, or
Yeah, I was
something
waiting for
that.
dad jokes everywhere.
So the original translation looked like Daddy of Light, and it was
Much better.
That's so much better. At least it's funnier.
It is.
You mean Light Daddy?
Oh, is there such a thing? That took me a
Luminous
second.
Papa. Final Fantasy 1 Dad of Light.
Ugh. Jesus.
So the show is I was stunned by how cringy the first episode was, even in spite of the premise. Your expectations are extremely low. So the idea is that his dad is really quiet, and him and the son, they bonded over Final Fantasy III, all the way back when it came out almost 25 years ago now at this point. I think more than 25 years ago in Japan at this point. And the dad, he very abruptly quits his job at the age of 60, a little bit prior to Japanese retirement age, and the son wants to find out why, but the dad won't open up to him. So he decides, I'm going to buy my dad this online game, and I'm going to pretend to be a character that doesn't look anything like myself. He plays like a blonde cat girl in the game, like all men must do in MMORPGs. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go chat my dad up in this MMO, and I'm gonna find out why he quit his job." and
all right.
And my wife, my wife was so like embarrassed by the premise that she got goosebumps, and you could like tell that she was like,
yeah, it's so embarrassing. Your family is so like messed up that they can't even talk to you. So you have to be even more messed up to actually communicate.
There was actually real quick, this is relevant. There was actually a mini arc in. Have you ever seen the anime Welcome to the NHK?
No, but I've heard of it.
Because the whole premise is about this shut-in who has enough of his parents' money that he can survive, but he's just not doing a job, and he's just kind of existing, like, he's in his own little apartment and, like, just dicking around online or whatever. But there was an arc, just like the one that's the premise of this Dad of Light, where, like, this cute online girl started talking to him via what was then current. It was, like, a knockoff that was obviously like not Final Fantasy 11, and so like there was some cute cat girl or something like that talking to this guy, but like it played out totally differently because it was pointing out his social awkwardness, and it was just like, I think it was the guy's like roommate or something like hazing him or whatever to make a point, and like Dad of Light's doing it in like with a positive spin, even though you really should like this shouldn't have to be a thing that happens.
Well, there's a moral hazard problem with the entire premise. Like, you're going behind your dad's back in order to, like, communicate. That's not
yeah.
like...
Well, that's the whole thing. That shouldn't have to exist. Yeah.
The developing cover story is that they think that the dad has an illness and that he's not reporting it because he's old and he thinks that, like, it's too much of a burden to the family. Yeah, so he's been very quiet about it, and that's what the driving force of the story is. Of course, if you know the backstory, you know that the dad and the son, they still raid together, like, fairly recently in the game. So obviously the dad didn't die from whatever illnesses that he had, unless they chose to do that for dramatic impetus in Dad of Light. The series, like, it got better as you got more adjusted to it. You know, it stopped being, like, quite so cringy, and it's actually pretty charming watching the son and the dad interact, because the dad has a sense of humor that he never expresses to his son, because he's always very serious as a parent.
Sure.
And so he, like, gets to know what his dad's like a little bit better. Like, it's also, like, machinima, most of the series. It's not something that looks like something that would take place. It's not like an incredibly accurate depiction of how the quests would look like.
Sure.
In Final Fantasy XIV, but it's cute. Like there are some scenes where the son goes to work, and then he uses lessons that he learns playing games with his dad, reminding him of things that his dad taught him when he was a kid that helped him solve problems that he had at his job.
That's a nice frame.
Yeah, and they also frame it as like a side quest. So when he gets this thing that he has to do at work, they play the little like side quest get music
nice.
That you get in the game, and when he completes it, he gets the little Final Fantasy victory jingle, and it's very adorable.
I'm okay with that.
That is cool that there is a way for a show like this to have an official release, like in the West. You know, it's the same kind of thing as kind of like you know, like retro game master that, like, you know, or Game Center CX that you wouldn't expect to get an official American release.
Yeah, we've discussed this before, that now, like, with the advent of the internet, not only is it easier to bring things over, but if something looks like it has a bit of a cultural block, as long as it's obvious that that's something you're not supposed to understand, the fans can go look it up later and they can understand what's going on. You know, like,
sure.
You can add, like, show notes, you can have, like, director commentary and things like that. Since it's a streaming service, you can have, like, side services to it. You can have special episodes that explain. They do this a lot now with a lot of the streaming shows. I watched American Gods on Starz, their version of the streaming service, and they actually, if you, like, hover your mouse over the video as you're watching it, it will do things like pop up the name and the artist of a song that's playing in the background, or maybe some like factoids about some bit characters that were appearing that you wouldn't like understand normally, or like you wouldn't know the character's important yet, or maybe it's a reference to something, at least in American Gods in the book, that's not important to the narrative sufficiently so that they would like call it out, but it's a callback that people who read the book would recognize.
I miss that kind of pop-up video kind of thing that used to be kind of prevalent on TV, you know, where they would just like explain little things about it.
Yeah, you mean like the show pop-up video?
Yeah,
on,
that's what I meant.
Yeah.
I used to love that kind of stuff because you know, I like the process of things, and I like the backstory of certain elements. So especially weird things.
I'd say it depends on my mood. Like if it's the first time I'm ever watching a movie, I want none of that. But on
of course not.
Like on subsequent viewings, though, like did you know like little trivia things or whatever?
Yeah, no, I mean that's some for successive viewings, and when you're a huge fan of something, absolutely.
All right. So the last Final Fantasy XIV note is that as part of my long-term subscription bonus, I got a mount, which you know is great. I get a mount for doing nothing but spending a lot of money on the game. It's based on the Falcon from Final Fantasy VI. Which is not really remarkable unto itself, except that if you like pan the camera, so that you're looking at the mount from the top, it looks exactly like a penis. And
okay.
and so Mr. Ryu has not gotten his Falcon mount yet for whatever reason, and he's like really mad that he can't drive the penis car around here.
Wow.
You know, so the only thing before you start changing subjects is like this Dad of Light thing. Is this a self-contained thing, or is this the kind of thing that could lead to like a movie or seasons, or like is that a thing that can exist?
Well, so Dad of Light was based off... I mean, it was kind of a self-contained story. It's based around a series of blog posts, like I said, that document the son taking the dad all the way to the end of the current content as of the writing of the post, which was, like, actually pretty early in the current... So the current incarnation of the game is 2.0, right? You can't play anything from the 1.0 version anymore. So in the show, they play up to the end of patch 2.1 and all the like high-level raid content that's available at the time, which isn't a whole lot. Like right now, Mitz and I are already into patch 3.0. Okay. So it goes from 2.1 up to 2.5, and there's a little bit extra after that, 2.55. And then there's basically 6 patches of content after the reboot of the game. Sure. And then six more comprising the expansion, and now there's a new expansion, Stormblood, that just came out. So there's a lot of content in the game, and it's been implied that the dad has gone sort of all the way through at least to somewhere in 3.x.
Oh, wow.
But like people have found they're based off of real characters. You can find them on the Lodestone, which is the central server that documents all the player information. You can look people up.
That's actually pretty cool.
They play on. Yeah, like they're real people. Although like the dad, like they make this whole comment. It's actually kind of funny because they say when he's creating his character, they give a little warning like don't use your real name. And we actually have a friend who her character name is her real name, because one of our friends sort of trolled her and told her, like, oh, yeah, just name your real name. You can change it later. And you can't. So now she's stuck using her real name. And she watched that episode, and she got really mad because it reminded her of the fact that she got fooled into using her real name as her character name. But the dad is, like, really insistent that he wants to use his real name. And so the son keeps telling him. So the son sets the PS4 up and like, makes his account for him and, like, gives him help, but never actually reveals to him that he plays the game and, like, is his best friend. So there is actually a funny scene where he's like wiping his nose with a tissue, and then the dad like knocks on the door, and for some reason he can't find the monitor button, so he like stands in front of the monitor like really awkwardly, holding a tissue in his hand. The dad walks in, he sees the son is like blocking the monitor, and he's holding a tissue, and he's like, "Oh, you are of that age," and then he leaves.
That's so dumb.
Yeah, it's really stupid.
That sounds like something you'd see in an anime. That's so contrived.
It's very anime. So like in one of the episodes, so his dad is having a problem. He wanders into like this high level area by accident, and he sees that all the NPCs are wearing and he quits. And the son is like, "Oh my god, my dad quit. Why did he quit? Did he wander into a high level area and he doesn't know what to do, or like what happened?" And at the same time, the real life scenario is that like all the female employees are quitting his company.
Oh.
And he doesn't know why. So he has to figure out why did his dad quit the game, and why did all the women in his company quit their jobs. And so there's this one like new female hire, and he's like asking her, trying to figure out why she doesn't seem to have a lot of enthusiasm for her job. And so his dad finally confesses to him that he wandered into this cold area, and all the people, they're wearing long sleeve clothes, and he's wearing short sleeve, and he's really embarrassed, and he can't figure out how to change his costume. And so he stopped playing. He stopped playing because he thought everybody in the game, that people would start making fun of him for wearing the wrong thing.
Okay.
And then it turns out that all the women are quitting this company just because the uniforms they have to wear are really ugly.
Of course, I knew that it would be some.
That's like, so dumb.
Some connection.
I know it's a job over that.
That's like every Kamen Rider episode ever, or like every episode of Castle ever, where it's like maybe this thing that's related to, like that has nothing to do with my life, translates to my life anyway. You know, like maybe that thing my daughter's doing in school can translate to how I solve this murder case. It's like, get the hell out of here.
Well, yeah. So it's extremely contrived, and at the end, like after that episode ends, the girl, after he takes his vested interest in getting her a nice looking uniform and keeping her in the company, she starts trying to ask him out basically every episode, and he keeps like completely missing it and ignoring it. It's absolutely the most anime thing ever. He's totally
it really is.
Was he really late for work one time and he had toast in his mouth?
No, he never had the toast in his mouth.
He trips and then falls in there.
He's not a schoolgirl.
Oh, okay.
No, there was no in media res breakfast.
Yeah. Oh, here's a question: if this series like really picks up, or I don't know if it has picked up in Japan, but like, if we can get, like, I guess you can only go so far with one family story. Like in real life, if it's over, it's over. But if we get more families, like, and we get different seasons of like somebody else's dad or whatever. Do you think that maybe Vice will like it, and you'll hate Vice for liking the four dads of light?
I see.
Yeah.
It's too late. I was the point of entry for this series.
My 4 dads of light.
Have you ever played Final Fantasy IV Dads of Light? Dad jokes for days. My favorite show. Hi, hungry. I'm dad.
Wow, that is a pun. That is a dad joke in itself. It's a dad joke that is a joke about dads.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but yeah.
I think, Lotus, that's a good time for me to ride my penis car into the sunset and end my segment.
Oh man.
Okay, enough dicking around.
Ooh. I'm erect and ready for the next one.
Yeah, speak for yourself. All right,
Lotus, you may fire when ready.
Wow. All right.
I
will indeed really discuss what I've been doing this week. All right, so first things first. I have a few things, but a couple of them are just quick, just in passing kind of mentions. One of them is I had mentioned a while ago. This is quite a long time ago, but I was playing one of the Super Solvers games, Gizmos and Gadgets, and I eventually uploaded just doing the last thing in that game. And it takes me, at this point, forever to beat those games because they're really grindy and repetitive by design because they're educational games for little kids, but I have nostalgia for them, which is why I'm interested in playing them now. And the thing is, because they're so repetitive and so, for the most part, basic until the very end of the game, but it's not hard for, like, an adult, even at the end. It's just kind of like, oh, I have to take a couple more seconds before I click the same thing over and over again. I take long to beat these games because I play them for, like, 30 to 60 minutes at a time and then log off, and you're supposed to be doing this for hours and hours because, again, like learning math or learning like rhyming or something really basic. So I can't bring myself to just grind away at something like this. Like, I like grindy games like Dynasty Warriors, but like this is really damn grindy.
Either you're also not learning everything either.
That's the thing. I'm not really getting anything out of it. Like
basic reading.
Yep, I found the clue to solve the puzzle again. Yeah.
You can kind of learn something about Chinese history from Dynasty Warriors, sort of. Not really.
Yeah, it's all canon, like the giant enemy crab. I learned all I need to know about the Romance of the Three Kingdoms from Magic the Gathering. Portal, Three Kingdoms.
You learn not to sell Imperial Seal to someone for.
I did learn that, yeah. But in any case, so I've been playing. That it's expensive.
So Lotus sold a card, traded a card to somebody for a copy of Scheherazade. and it turned out the card he sold is now like $800 and one of the most expensive cards in Magic.
Wow.
Because Portal 3 Kingdoms did not have a widespread English release, and the guy who Lotus sold this to did not make him aware of this. It was a bit.
Well, no, I didn't have an English release of the card anyway. I had still Chinese characters.
Oh, well, it's still extremely rare, even in the Chinese version.
Yeah, I think it was like the number 2 card in the set, right behind Shikifukujin Dragon.
No, Zodiac Dragon.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah, nobody has Shikifukujin. Yeah, Zodiac is something else.
Shikifujin Dragon is
that sounds
is
Japanese
a card
anyway.
That only one copy was ever made of, and it was like installed in the Japanese Wizards of the Coast store while that was open, and I'm not sure where it is now, but like it's an incredible rarity.
Yeah,
it's
my
one
bad.
of only
That's a Japanese name for a freaking.
It's one of only 2 cards in Magic that only 1 copy exists of, and the other one is the first world champion got a card.
Well, didn't Richard Garfield also make unique copies of like representing him getting married and his kid or whatever?
Yes, but there's more than 1 copy of those. He gave
oh, really?
To all his friends. Yeah.
Okay. But in any case, so that was Gizmos and Gadgets. I talked about that a while back, but lately I've been playing Treasure Cove. I like Gizmos and Gadgets more, but Treasure Cove I think I played first. And there's a lot of these Super Solvers games. There's Treasure Mountain, Treasure Cove, Treasure Mathstorm, stuff like that. And they have different things you can, quote, learn. The games are not designed for people like us anymore. They're designed for little kids. But I've been playing Treasure Cove recently, and that game is way more basic than Gizmos and Gadgets, because it's really just, like, find the object, kind of. So it's really monotonous. But I just kind of, like, I remember playing it, and the soundtrack's still pretty good. It's only, like, 2 or 3 tracks in the game, but they're pretty okay, especially for what they were. So I beat that recently and uploaded it. So hooray, you get to see me defeat the Master of Mischief again. Take that, Master of Mischief. That's what you get for polluting the ocean. Don't do it.
Thanks, Captain Planet.
Yeah, close enough. But, yeah, so...
Power is yours.
Oh, it is. Oh, it is. So, let's just leave it at that. Alright, so one thing I want to mention also in passing is that I've kind of wanted to do this for a while, and I never really had the impetus to do it, but I finally did. I haven't uploaded it yet, but I went back to the Ride to Hell Let's Play that I did with Mr. Ryu, and I just made a supercut of the particularly amusing moments in that Let's Play, so I'll be uploading that later. It's like, I mean, it's probably the best way to experience Ride to Hell, because a lot of that game is really just like drive down the road for like a good 3 minutes, and like every action sequence is the same. The game is really only worth watching for the cutscenes and any glitches that happen. So the supercut, it's not every cutscene, but it's stupid stuff.
And also Mr. Ryu making fun of you.
There's at least... He did a bunch of times, but in the supercut there's at least 1 clip of that, which is actually one of my favorite parts of the entire Let's Play, because it was damn funny.
Nice.
Ride to Hell is one of those games where if you ever crash into something during a bike segment, it fades to black and it respawns you a few feet back, but you've still taken damage. But, like, time resets except for the fact that you've taken damage, so don't crash again. So, like, it spawned me just a little bit back, and I'm like, okay, let's drive again. And then I immediately hit the same object because it was, like, right in front of me. And Mr. Ryu just, got on my case for that. I think I linked to that, actually, before.
I've actually watched that far into the Let's Play of my own volition, so I did that to myself.
Yeah, it was pretty great. So, yeah, that'll be a fun thing to watch, because it's just a comedy of errors with freaking Ride to Hell. It's amazing. So, look forward to that in the relatively near future. I guess I'll give you my Dark Souls update. That game's longer than I remember. I Let's Played Demon Souls, and I think it was, like, around 20 installments. I forgot if it was a little fewer or a little more, but it was about 20 installments. So I was like, oh, okay, so Dark Souls will be similar length, I guess. Wrong. Like, I'm already on installment, like, 42. Like, I said Skies of Arcadia was by far the longest thing I've done solo, but Dark Souls is going to get right up there. I don't think it's going to hit 52 parts like Skies of Arcadia, but it's going to be in the mid to late 40s. Like, that game's way the hell longer than I remember. Like, just by a lot. So, okay. But anyway, as to where I am in Dark Souls, I've done just about everything in the main story. All I have left to do is Lost Izalith and fight the Bed of Chaos, and then do the final boss. But I'm doing the DLC as well. So that's kind of where I am in the Let's Play right now. I beat Artorias, which is like the hypest freaking fight in that game. It's man, like I already, I've played Dark Souls before, but now I'm Let's Playing it, so like now I know to look forward to this fight. Because when I first played it, I was like, holy crap, this is way more intense than anything I've done so far. So now I knew it was coming, and it was like, it was just really engaging. But after him, there's the rest of the DLC, which I'm going to do later. But there's this one other boss you can do even before Artorias, which is this big black dragon, Calamite. Oh man, fuck that guy. Like, he has way too much health, and he's hyper aggressive. He's not quite as jumping all over you in your face like Artorias was, but I'm playing a tank, and most of this guy's moves drain your stamina like freaking crazy. Like, you're really supposed to dodge roll this guy, but he has way too many moves to know, or at least for me, to know how to react in a dodge roll manner. So I just stand there and tank and just hope he doesn't do something that penetrates my guard, like his fire breath. I can't 100% block fire, so he's really... I hated this guy when I first played the game, and now it's like, well, now I gotta do it again on camera, so that'll be fun. Like, he's a cool freaking boss, but he's a pain in my ass, especially because it takes like 5 minutes to get to him every time I die, and then the fight itself takes forever, even if I'm doing it right, because more than anything else, I'm just standing there and blocking, because I'm afraid to do anything in case he decides to do like a thing that can two-shot me or something. It's really frustrating, but at least it's cool as hell. So yeah, I'll be getting through that. The last thing I want to mention is I bought a Wii U on Black Friday. No, I don't know if it was Black Friday. No, it wasn't. That was the PS4. I bought a Wii U, though, sometime in 2015. I was like, for whenever I need a Wii U, because I was really hyped about Fatal Frame Maiden of Black Water. And I plugged the Wii U in for the first time last night.
Jeez. I didn't know it was that. Wow.
Yep, because I had a Patreon request to that'll go up after Undertale that is of a Wii U game, so I gotta set up the Wii U. The thing with the Wii U though is regarding Fatal Frame Maiden of Black Water, I pre-ordered the European Collector's Edition of the game when that came out because it's freaking cool. But this goes back to what OldManStompy was saying in like a rant of his about like, amiibos. Like, when I'm buying this, that means some kid can't get to use that amiibo. So like when I have the European Fatal Frame disc, anybody can still get Fatal Frame, but somebody's not going to get that physical copy of it. But I'm trying to see if I can mod the Wii U so it accepts European discs. Number one, so I don't have to download a game that might be too big for the Wii U itself and just be a pain in my ass. And number two, to relieve my guilt a little bit. So I was able to put the homebrew channel on the Wii U. As for, there is something I want to see if I can implement. I might try that later, but at least for now, I think, I haven't tried this, but I think even if I can't run the game directly off the disc, I believe I have a program that loads games from an SD card and another program that dumps discs contents onto the SD card. So I think I can make this work. If so, I will be very, very happy. And speaking of, this game coming after Undertale, the Undertale Let's Play has started to upload. So patrons can watch... Well, if you're listening to this podcast on Tuesday, then patrons ought to be able to listen to, depending what time of day it is, Part 4 or Part 5, and the general public will be able to see Part 1 and more of this just a few days from now. So either I hope you're enjoying the Let's Play, or I hope that you will when it comes up.
So this week it reminds me that Lotus Prince, as he mentioned in response to my rant just now, is extremely susceptible to guilt. Because when he posted the first episode as available to Patreons, I was like, I am in this Let's Play and I can't watch it. So he immediately got back to me and like sent me a message on Facebook that said that like it's a private link and he could just give me the link if I wanted to watch my own video, just because I'm his friend and I was in it, right, without, not that it's something that we should expect. Like, I'm not telling his normal fans to go and harass him on Facebook so that they'll get
that's the thing. Yeah, I didn't want to post that like publicly. Like, oh, I'll just link people. Like, you were in the damn videos.
Yeah. So I told him at the time that like I was there. I don't really need to watch it. If anything, I would just give it to my mom in case she wanted to watch a video that we were in, or like my wife's sisters or something if they wanted to watch it. And mostly the enjoyment that I was getting was like just complaining about it to him.
Yeah, just Schadenfreude. By the way, tell your mom to like, comment, and subscribe.
And please join my Patreon.
Well, I have I do have the Corrective Consciousness script. I could just read it out to her the next time I call her for a family event.
You can find me as OldManStompy wherever I want to be found.
Not on Steam though.
And if I don't want to be found, I will close my door so you can't see me.
Yes.
So actually that reminds me. So recently the WWF, they uploaded, you know how John Cena's joke is that you can't see him?
Oh, I heard about this. Yeah.
They uploaded like a series of photos of John. They were called unseen photos of John Cena, and they were just like photos of like John Cena's logo or like just random pictures backstage, and he wasn't in any of them.
Oh, I had not heard of this. No, I heard about something else where John Cena himself embraced the meme where it was like the iPhone X or something, its face recognition technology, and John Cena made a tweet of like, I don't know, it doesn't seem to be working for me, and everyone was like, oh!
So he's also done the unexpected Cena thing, you know, where like randomly, you know, you're expecting some person's name, and instead like it yells out,
but it was
his name is
Dio.
John Cena,
and he started doing that, like he would just like, it was like some Cricket Wireless advertisement where all of a sudden like his music would play and he would just come bursting out of the wall.
That's great.
It was actually really cool because it was really neat for like a lot of little kids because they did it for a lot of little kids and they were super excited.
Yeah, apparently John Cena is just like a really cool guy in real life.
John Cena is a gigantic nerd. So he has a there's a segment where like someone in his big championship match against CM Punk, the one that Punk won that made him a star. They were in Chicago, which is Punk's hometown, and he was walking down the entrance ramp, and there was this guy who was holding a sign that said, "If Cena wins, we riot." And like Cena ran up to him and he took a selfie with him, and then he ran to the ring. And then like a couple of weeks later, someone found Cena like in an IHOP or a Denny's or something, and he was wearing a shirt that said like, "If Cena wins, we complain on the internet."
Nice. That's fantastic. That's gold.
That's amazing. Yep. Yeah.
So anyway, Lotus, now that I've hijacked your segment to talk about wrestling because I couldn't find a spot to talk about it in my segment.
No, it's too late. My segment's over now, so you ruined it. Go ahead, Vice.
No, it's okay. You guys can talk about Binding of Isaac, and I'll go to bed.
I'm not in the mood anymore.
Speaking of which,
oh really?
No, actually, we did just play Binding of Isaac yesterday. We'll talk about this more during Recon. But Vice visited New York City, and he brought his Switch, and my wife played Binding of Isaac Afterbirth Plus.
Yep.
And she asked if she could be on the podcast, and she was like, "So, do you guys talk about Binding of Isaac at all?"
No, never.
I mean, not anymore. Except we still kind of do.
Well, you know, there's our mention for those of you who are playing the Corrective Consciousness.
Yeah, now we talk about how we don't talk about it.
This is when you drink vodka. You drink bourbon whenever we mention Windjammers.
Yeah. That's how it works. But yeah, for real though, that actually was my segment anyway. So yeah, Vice, how about you? What's your week been like?
What was that?
What's your week been like?
Put a few games on it. Anyway, so the one game that I have been playing for a while now, which has still been taking me some amount of time, is Rise of the Tomb Raider. Mostly because of my work. My work schedule is so dominating. It makes it very difficult for me to even want to play a video game, which is one of my favorite things to do. I come home and I'm just exhausted. I do essential things instead of something that's fun for me. And
sure.
And Rise of the Tomb Raider, and it's one of those things where I'm committed to playing the game, even though I'm like not entirely enjoying it as much as maybe something else.
It's a sunk cost.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I like aspects of it. You know, like I like how the game's missions are all set up, and I like the exploration of the game, and I also like that type of game to begin with. I like adventure style games, and I like games where you explore, an area. The game has actually been getting better as time goes on. So longtime listeners will remember really that I haven't been enjoying it, mostly because the character of Lara is pretty insufferable. She's basically a desperate psychopath, like in the game. Like she is a survivalist. Like there are many outfits that are her just a lot of her items are put together from her, like, sewing pelts together that she's, of animals she's killed herself. So she looks like a maniac. And she's killing people constantly. She doesn't need to be doing it. She should
sew some of her inventory together from pelts of people she's killed.
Yeah, I mean, all we need is for it to be the Heart of Darkness, the video game.
Yeah, Leatherface.
Well, no. I was referring to the book, The Heart of Darkness, which is the inspiration for Apocalypse Now.
Not to be confused with Heart of Darkness, the video game.
Yeah. Actually, the actual Heart of Darkness, the video game, which has nothing to do with the novel.
You're not even close.
But yeah, the novel is really about a guy who was in some African missions for England, I think, just like in colonialism, and he's basically gone nuts, and he's started collecting body parts as like trophies, like a predator would. He's like collecting ears and stuff like that. So that's what I'm referencing. So anyway, she's like one step away from that, but the character in the storyline, the character is kind of coming to the point where she's doing things out of altruism for the rebels in the game, rather than, and I guess maybe that's the whole point, is her character arc is to be insufferable for like half a game, and then eventually make a turning point where she's like doing things for the right reason rather than her own selfish needs. But it's one thing in a movie to have that, because it's constantly going, but when it's self-propelled, you want to be a character that you identify with, or at least have fun being, right? Like, even if you want to be an evil character, you want to do fun evil things, but this is just being a maniac, and not in any fun way.
We've discussed this before, right? That like she shares a lot of characteristics with like Nathan Drake, in the sense that they're both just like they're kind of, if you take a step back, actually psychopaths who have killed like hundreds of people over the course of their games without really blinking too much of an eye. But at least Nathan Drake is funny.
Yeah.
At least he has charisma, right? Her character has no redeeming qualities as of the point I am in the game.
It is interesting that you mentioned that she wears costumes that are closer to like survivalist costumes than what she wore in the first game, because that always it kind of struck a chord to me that they were trying to make a more modernized version, that they claim they were trying to make a more modernized version of Lara. They hired Rihanna Pratchett to write her dialogue, so that she was scripted by an actual female writer, as opposed to a room full of male writers, which is so common in the industry.
This is what women think and say. Yeah,
right. So, but Lara, her like model was still unrealistically she was downgraded from like a cartoon porn star to like a regular porn star in terms of her like proportions, and like there were lots and lots of gratuitous shots of like her cleavage in a tank top all through the whole game, and it never really made any sense because she was invading like a military base, and she could easily just put on camouflage, which you'd think that she would have done because she was wandering around. Yeah, it never really made sense. Like, now they do it, but it doesn't make her character any more likable. It doesn't make the gameplay any more fun. But it's nice that they at least threw a bone towards that.
Well, I mean, I think they're overcompensating. Is the point? I mean, like, you can have a woman in full combat gear. They don't make different SWAT uniforms. They make them in different sizes, but they don't make different SWAT uniforms for a female SWAT officer, right? Like, they wear the same stuff. They don't show off any of their body. Like, that's dumb.
Well, tell every fucking armor designer in like every fucking role-playing game in history. Sure.
So anyway, I'm starting to enjoy it a little bit more. I've also gotten to the point where I have more abilities, so therefore I can more, in the general Metroidvania sense, I can more freely explore some of the gated areas. So I'm having a little bit more fun in that sense. There are less areas that are blocked off to me in this point of the game because I'm getting towards the end. But I'll reserve complete judgment until the end of the game. Let's see whether she makes a decent character art. Now, as mentioned before, my girlfriend and I took a trip up to New York, and we took the Bolt bus, which is a good way to do it, I think, because it's hard to find parking in New York, and you sure as hell don't want to drive around in it yourself. So
no,
nobody drives in New York. There's too much traffic.
Yeah, but actually, I don't know. I genuinely don't know what's worse, the driving or the parking. Because, like, you cannot park. Like, you have to find, even with parking garages, you have to hope that they're open, that they're not full.
Yeah, and there was a lot of special event parking, so all the rates were all jacked up anyway. Which I'll get to in reactive. But it turned out to be, that was the best thing, is taking public... I always preferred public transportation anyway. I usually took the train in previous years because I was either at Rutgers or I knew I could drop my car off in Princeton, where Lotus lives. But
that's the thing, like, from either location, from Rutgers or from the general area where I live, like, both locations are within walking distance of the train station. So, like, going to New York City was really easy. You just sit on the train for like 45 minutes and you're done.
So what was great about this is the Bolt bus leaves from the town just over from where I live now, and it is only $30 round trip. So fantastic, really good. But anyway, on it I got to play my Switch, and I finally got a chance to pop in Mario plus Rabbids. And I had quite a bit of fun with that. I pretty much only did the tutorial in it, but it has a lot of charm. Not that I should think otherwise for a Nintendo game, but it's really kind of an Ubisoft game.
I was gonna say it's not really a Nintendo game. That's the interesting part.
They did a really good job with it. It had a lot of funny moments in the initial cinematic where the Rabbids are creating havoc. And the gameplay is very reminiscent of a lot of people are saying XCOM, but I've never been really an XCOM. I never really got a chance to play it. I played the original a little bit, but it was so hard that I quit very quickly.
That's what I've heard. The original one, like, everyone complains about how the new XCOM is super hard, but apparently not compared to that one.
No, the original drops you in the game, and you there's no tutorials or anything, and so you don't know how to. It's kind of like playing SimCity without any instructions at all.
Yeah.
So, like, you don't know how to balance a budget or anything, or and like the game's all about us managing like a company or
that's the thing.
Like
you're like,
an
I know how much buildings cost, so I don't want to spend more money than I have. But then all of a sudden, taxing and popularity comes into play, and you're like, oh geez, you just didn't.
Yeah. So it's kind of reminiscent of like what we consider to be modern machine learning. So like when you try to teach a computer how to do something, you give it an input data set, and all you really tell it is what the failure states are, and it learns how to avoid those failure states through like incredible numbers of repetitions. But that's the reason we have computers do that now is because it's really tedious for a person to do it on their own when they're trying to have fun.
Yeah, exactly. So I would be more willing to play the new game, of course, and I just haven't had a chance to because or the new games rather. There are two of them now.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure they walk you through it. I'm sure because a lot of people love those games. They don't just drop you in the thick of things. But
one of the which is real quick. One of the what people are finding to be the most fun part of the new ones is that you can custom name your characters, like your general grunts, and that doesn't seem like a big deal. But it kind of is. Like, you grow attached to them when you know their names.
Sure.
So it's like
naming.
It's like Oregon Trail.
Yeah, well, it's like the whole old idiom of like, if you're a farmer, do not name your livestock because you won't want to kill them then.
Well, that's the thing. It's like Oregon Trail. It's like VyseTheBold died of dysentery. Like, oh no, not VyseTheBold. Yeah, so like the same thing happens in XCOM. Like, it's just some grunt, but if it's named after your friend and they die, you're like, oh, the times we had together, and like, etc., etc.
This is supposedly a thing with Darkest Dungeon too, that like you can customize your characters and send them dungeon crawling, and then when they die, which they inevitably do, you feel bad about it. And there's an interesting like psychological study that people have done that like it desensitizes you to play the game because it's so hard that you become less compelled to care about your people like as the game goes on. Like it psychopathologizes you.
Huh.
Wow. Sent Jimmy from accounting to die. But anyway,
Bob from accounting fighting a trained was it a trained org or something like that?
Yeah, that takes me back. Wow.
So anyway, what it actually reminds me of, which I played a lot more than any of those types of games, is Resonance of Fate. So it has a very similar. It's not as rigid as being a grid-based game. Like, you don't move in blocks. Like, you move in a radius rather than that.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit more freeform.
Yeah.
A little bit more freeform than something like a Final Fantasy Tactics, for instance, or Fire Emblem, for instance, or XCOM. XCOM is grid-based.
Yeah, exactly.
So Mario plus Rabbids is like Resonance of Fate in that it's radii, you know.
Yeah. By the way, I do find it kind of funny, by the way, that like, and this is true for me too, because I also have not played XCOM, but it amuses me that like you're saying, well, I don't understand the reference to this super popular XCOM game, but Resonance of Fate though, yeah,
a really obscure tri-ace RPG that only basically me, you, and Pyro like.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I'm also sitting here Resonance of Fate.
I also have that game, and I know the characters from an even more obscure game, which is Project Cross Zone.
Yeah, Project Cross Zone. Yeah, but it is kind of funny that like we on the podcast are like, oh yeah, okay, Resonance of Fate, sure, yeah.
but like, what the fuck is XCOM? What's an XCOM?
Well, it just happens that like in our group of friends, this game is popular, but that
I mean, to be fair, you introduced me to Resonance of Fate directly. So after I saw you playing with some of the overworld, I'm like, okay, I want to play this.
Yeah, it was a game that was very much not well received because of its complication. Like how complicated it is.
And then when it first came out, and it was
it's a fucking great game.
The extra, like the secret level, holy shit, is that hard.
But anyways, Mario plus Rabbids is a lot of fun. There's some exploration in between battles, which is a lot of fun. The humor is great. The Rabbids aren't obnoxious in it, which I'm sure was a concern to some
was
people.
My main fear, yeah.
They are not. They are actually quite charming, to be honest. And there's some really snarky characters in the game because they're all like... the basic setup is that... all the Rabbids have been like merged with something else and have become corrupted. So like the bad Rabbids are like a paintbrush and a Rabbid. like they just can't rationalize being a real thing, so they're just like bad and stupid.
I hope that the final boss is Rabbid Waluigi.
Well, this happens in basically a Nintendo fan's room, so that's why a Rabbid and Luigi get merged together. It was like a Luigi doll, and
so
a
Peach
it's
basically
doll.
the original Super Smash Brothers.
Yeah,
but with Rabbids.
Yeah,
but with Rabbids.
But what's funny about it is that like Rabbid Peach interacts with real Peach and kind of treats her like she's the fake, which is really funny to me. And she's kind of overacting, and they mention how she's cosplaying a little too hard.
I have to admit, funny. When I saw the original advertisements for the game, the thought that like having the Rabbids play like really off-color versions of the original Nintendo characters, knowing that Nintendo usually plays it so safe with their IPs, had the potential for a lot of comedic gold, and I'm happy that it turned out okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's really good so far. I'm really enjoying it, and I will play a lot more of it, and I don't expect it to be nearly as hard as XCOM or anything like that, which is good. And I expect to be the main driver of the game to be like the exploration of it. Like a lot of other... it has light exploration, like a Mario and Luigi game would, or something like that. So I'm really enjoying that.
I'm thinking that the very last thing you see in the game is, no, Johnny, I didn't see you playing with your dolls again. Good.
Son, you are of that age.
Also, while I was in New York, we went to Chinatown Fair, and I got a chance to play Elevator Action Death Parade, which I haven't gotten a chance to play because it's been broken every time we've gone to
round one.
So I'm a huge fan of elevator action games. I love every game in the series pretty much. And this is the most recent one. It's a light gun game, unlike all the rest of them. And the gimmick is that it has a real working elevator door. Like a metal door that closes and opens with the context of the game. So it's pretty neat. It's kind of low budget in terms of graphics, and it's an okay light gun game. But it was a fun experience to have that gimmick. And the big thing that I wanted to go over this week is that I saw Stephen King's It with my girlfriend, and I absolutely loved it. I thought it was a great movie, a great adaptation. I thought it was great. We saw it at Regal Theater, so we when we got there, the one that we had, the showing that we wanted to go to was sold out, so we went to the next one, and it was at an RPX venue, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with the RPX experience. So essentially, it's an upgraded movie viewing experience, kind of like the IMAX would be.
Okay.
However, it's with upgraded sound and with seats that vibrate with like the intense parts of the film.
Sure.
Oh wow. So with this particular film, since it's a horror film, and there are many pretty rough moments, where you're scared all of a sudden, it's particularly effective. Like I wouldn't think it would be particularly effective if I watched it during like the Avengers. I would think it would be mildly cool, but it's really good with this kind of film, especially a good horror film. It has one of the actors from Stranger Things, one of the main characters from Stranger Things.
That's really amusing. That
is Richie.
He's in both It and the series that was inspired by It, like the derivation.
Yeah. I actually thought that was fantastic, and I applaud the producers for making that decision. Yeah. And it was really well done. The acting was really great on the kids' parts. I thought it was a really good adaptation. I like it better than the Tim Curry version. I like Tim Curry's acting.
Well, here's the thing about that. Like, I like the Tim Curry version a lot. I will happily watch it whenever it's on, but let's be realistic. It's not great.
Yeah, well, like it's a TV miniseries.
Quite good, but like it's not great. Like a remake of it of any kind would have likely been a step up. Not that it's even a bad movie, but it just doesn't have like a horror movie effect. Like not really.
Yeah. Well, It was a very good movie, and also I'm happy to say that it is built in that there is going to be a sequel.
Well, it's the second half, right? It's the adult half.
I didn't realize that. I thought I was going to see the full experience, so I was wondering, when do they become adults?
Yeah.
So apparently in the sequel.
Honestly, normally I don't like the whole, like, we're going to take one book and turn it into two movies.
But it's a gigantic-ass book.
That's the thing. Like, it worked for Harry Potter 7, because that book's freaking long, and it is way longer than that. It's, like, one of the Stephen King's biggest books, I think. Possibly, it's, like, his longest or second longest or something.
Well, the Stand is the longest.
The Stand? Okay, well, it might be number 2. It is crazy huge, though.
Yeah, it's a very big book. It's an Atlas Shrugged level of words. So it was a very good movie. I enjoyed it. As far as Stephen King movies go, I mean, they range from really terrible to some of the best movies ever made.
Yeah,
I mean, you have The Green Mile, which is a great movie. You have Misery.
And then you have The Shining, Overdrive.
But then you have stuff like Lawnmower Man, right? Which is like one of the worst. It's awful.
And then you have the even better Lawnmower Man 2, Job's War in cyberspace. Remember that time there was the internet and Lawnmower Man?
Yeah, remember when it was a short story about a weird guy that ate grass?
It was a weird short story about a fucking lawnmower man. Like that was it. It was about a lawnmower man.
Yes. Instead, it was a Flowers for Algernon like ripoff that had to do with VR for some reason. But anyway, go and see it if you have any interest in Stephen King or horror at all. It's a good horror film with a lot of comedic moments. The kid who plays Richie, again, steals the show.
Yeah.
He is quite funny throughout the course of the movie, as per his character in the book. It is... I want to read the book now, because as big of a Stephen King fan as I am, it was one of the movies I passed over while I was reading a lot of his books. So I really want to go back and read it now.
And you know what? I heard that the new movie, like even the old movie, which I didn't realize, but apparently the new movie has a lot of like really subtle nods to the book. Like the only clip of the movie I've seen, because I haven't seen the movie, is one of the big promotional trailer, you know, with the famous Georgie with the paper boat in the sewer scene. And one thing I didn't even realize was mentioned in the book is, of course, when Richie's just like, ah, shucks, my paper boat fell down the sewer. All of a sudden you see, like, because it's always just pitch black when you look in a storm drain, but all of a sudden you see these like orange, like eyes of like a cat. They're just these orange eyes, and it's like, oh shit. But when, of course, it's the clown. But when you see the clown like come closer and approach, and it's like, oh, it's just a clown. You barely even notice it happen, but the eyes shift from orange to blue.
Yeah.
And you might be wondering why they would do that in the movie. Like, it wasn't like a close-up, like the eyes change color, but like it was really subtle, and even though you're watching it, you might miss it. And that was addressed directly in the book as one of those, oh, I must have just been seeing things. It's clearly just a dude in the sewer, and people have normal blue eyes, not orange, crazy, like demon eyes. So clearly I was the one at fault. Like, it was a really nice little touch.
Yeah, it was a very good adaptation as far as I could tell, and I liked what they did. I liked the symbolism. They even made a nod to Tim Curry in it, which is
did
good.
they really?
Yeah, they have his picture in the background.
Hey,
there's a room in which Pennywise is trying to trying to kill Richie. And not to ruin anything, there's nothing.
Well, shock of shocks, he tries to kill the kids. It's the whole plot.
Yeah. He's in a room that's filled with clowns, and Richie is afraid of clowns.
Yeah, fuck that, by the way.
That. It's awful. It's awful. It's in a haunted house, and it sucks.
Yeah.
But one of the pictures in the background is
that's
Tim
great.
Curry's version of Pennywise.
And
anyway,
I gotta say, again, I have not seen the movie, so I'm not this expert to talk about it. But of the scene that I did see, Bill Skarsgård has a very different interpretation of the clown, but from what I saw, it works. Like,
he did a great job.
Because when Tim Curry is talking to Georgie in the sewer, I don't know the name of the kid's actor, but when Tim Curry, Pennywise, is talking to Georgie, he's just like, oh, that's very wise of your father, very wise indeed. And it's like there's something clearly off about him, but like he's kind of like being Tim Curry, and it's fun because you're like, yeah, Tim Curry. But like I gotta say, Bill Skarsgård pushed the clown angle more, and he did the like, hey little buddy, like kind of voice, and because I'm so used to Tim Curry, it was really weird for me to hear like a relatively high-pitched Pennywise, and that isn't even like his normal voice. He doesn't have to talk like that, but he kind of just does that, and it's like it's even more off-putting that he's acting more authentic, because you'd expect a clown in a freaking storm drain to be off, because why are you here? But he's basically playing it straight, except that he's in the storm drain. Like, why are you in the storm drain? Well, a storm came and just blew me away, blew the whole circus away, and I'm just like, this is fucking creepy. He does a great job. He kind of plays it straight as a clown. But you know, of course he's creepy, but it's creepy because of that. Oh, and right? one nod I have to give out, by the way. Some movies do this. They try to be cute. Like, apparently The Dark Tower was like the time it aired, when it first aired, was like whatever o'clock 19, because 19 is a prominent number. Sometimes they get cute like that. The new It came out in 2017, which was 27 years after the TV movie 1990, because you know Pennywise comes back every 27 years. So
that's great.
That might explain why we've heard about it being made forever, to the point where we think it just fell into development hell. But nope, it was all planned to be launched this year. Like, that's kind of clever.
One thing they did change about the novel is that like the adult era is supposed to happen in present day.
Well, I know that there's like a 30-year shift. The kids are in the 80s instead of the 50s, but apparently, from what I've heard, that works. My brother saw the movie and he dug it. So.
27-year shift.
Oh,
but anyway,
duh. Yeah, well,
yeah. So anyway, go and see it. Very good. Much better than the Dark Tower, which was the other Stephen King thing that happened this year.
Yeah.
Now, I just real quick before we move on to questions, I wanted to give everybody a vinyl update because I tell everybody about my vinyl acquisitions. So I had been since when I buy things, I want to make sure that I get like the full experience. So I've been kind of wanting to get the Undertale soundtrack, despite because everybody has told me that I will like it. So I believe you and I trust you. Particularly you two have been telling me
really,
that.
Yeah, like they're like.
I haven't played the game and
really
I haven't
good.
watched your LP. And I haven't listened to the soundtrack, but I believe you when you tell me that I will like it because you know my tastes.
Well, here's the thing. I think OldManStompy might have mentioned this before, but the creator of the game is a music guy, and not only is the music great, but on subsequent viewings or on subsequent playthroughs, there are like subtle messages, not message, but there are subtle meanings even within some of the tracks. So,
like with the themes that are being played,
and there's no possible way you can understand this on a first playthrough unless you are hyper observant. But like on later playthroughs, you might.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I this came up during one of the favorite soundtrack discussions that like I likened Undertale to a rock opera in video game form in the sense that it tells a story through the music.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, what has been stopping me from buying the soundtrack to begin with is that the one that is currently offered is the regular edition, and it has one less record included with it than the initial special edition. The initial version of the Undertale soundtrack on vinyl included a 45 LP that had an extra song on it. The dog song, if I understand it right. I have no idea what that means. But apparently it has special meaning to people who like the game. Anyway, I've been wanting to get the full experience because the current pressing that you could buy does not include that vinyl. It only includes the two standard vinyls. So anyway, to commemorate the Japanese version of Undertale, which apparently people were even like fan translating this game in Japan because they really wanted to play it. Apparently, there's a huge cult following of Undertale in Japan. Now they're actually releasing an official version in Japan. To commemorate it, they are re-releasing the soundtrack with a different cover and also with the dog song on an LP again. So
thank God.
I could buy it for a normal price. I mean, it has a different cover, but I'm okay with that. It's kind of cool even because it's something special. So
yeah.
I'm buying that, and the only other thing real quick is I'm waiting for Ys VIII to be released on PC. Falcom games traditionally are on PC, so that's kind of where I want to play them. So I'm waiting, and the game got delayed probably for a while they fix some issues there that they found during the beta. So I'm waiting for that to be re-released, but I'm behind on Falcom games at this point, so I don't particularly mind waiting a little bit until the PC version is perfected. So anyway, we can move on to questions.
Sure, I think we have time for one. Insane Buffoon asks, if you could be best friends with a fictional character, who would you choose and why? Like, in my case, I don't know if I have a particular character so much as a type. Like, I don't need to be that guy who's best friends with the main character of a show, because usually they're, like, bombastic or whatever. I would probably just want, like, just some normal, boring person. I would want Porky from Earthbound. Wow. Fuck
he would be the best friend that I can imagine.
What an annoying knock.
Probably the worst friend you could ever have.
Spankety.
Yeah, you don't want to know that guy.
Oh, what a living piece of shit.
I don't know. It's kind of hard to pick these kinds of things because I'm trying to think characters I like. Oh wait, Nathan Drake. No, he kills a bunch of people.
That's the thing. Like, he seems like a cool guy to hang out with. Oh wait, he's killed literally over 500 people and doesn't even care.
So, like, one of the most popular choices for, like, a character you want to be best friends with is usually Doctor Who, because he has a host of companions, and they're all audience surrogates, and he takes them on adventures. But, like, part of the theme of the Doctor is that he's a pacifist, so when conflict has to resolve itself, the companions are always the ones who wind up doing the dirty work, and it's actually, like, really horrifying to be a companion in the Doctor Who universe. So, like, that was my first impulse, and the more you think about it, the less you actually want to just be an acquaintance of the Doctor and not
You're basically Morty. You're in Rick and Morty, right? You get brought in to do all the shit that you know is way too dangerous to do yourself.
I mean, Morty is a parody of that character, like a hyper-realistic version of that character in the kind of world that a doctor like Rick would inhabit, right?
Yeah.
So, like, it's a play-off of that trope.
Yeah,
Sure,
I mean,
sure.
actually, the original... Have you seen, like, the original pitch for Rick and Morty?
I haven't. Are you talking about, like, the pilot when it was called, like, Rick and Morty or something?
Maybe,
Doc
but
and
like,
Marty.
yeah, the
Doc and-
real old original YouTube sketches were basically just dark Back to the Future. So, like, Morty is Marty. Yeah.
Yeah. No, he's even wearing the vest and everything.
Yeah.
He was actually... The characters were actually used to advertise Channel 101 stuff for a long time. So, like, other TV shows and other projects, they would actually like Scud the Disposable Assassin was had an advertisement done for it. Because they knew the guy who made Scud Disposable Assassin. So that's a comic book from way back when from Image Comics, if anybody cares. But yeah, I mean, this is hard to pick because you want somebody fun, but you wouldn't want somebody who's a maniac either.
And the funny thing is, even Doctor Who, like, without the danger, I don't want to go on these wild, crazy adventures. Like, I know they're interesting, I'm sure, but it's just like...
Lotus Prince is the Bilbo Baggins of of real life.
Yeah, I'll sleep through that
back
battle.
again. There and back again. Actually, I didn't go anywhere. I just stayed home.
Yeah. just like Bilbo, I was unconscious during the entire Battle of the Five Armies.
Somebody needs to go retrieve the One Ring. No thanks, I'd rather not.
Yeah, I already riddled my way out of it. It's fine.
I would think that, like, any of the cast of the American Power Rangers movies would probably be, like, pretty cool people to know, but you also wouldn't want to live in Angel Grove, California, so you'd probably have to be like...
Well, yeah,
lots
it's
of
like living in
skyscrapers that get
Japan when,
destroyed
like...
every single week.
That's the thing, yeah. It's like living in Tokyo, Japan, where every single kaiju movie ever takes place. It's like the place no one wants to live there.
Literally 52 monsters a year on a strict schedule.
Sucks.
I mean, so we're talking about fictional characters, literally anybody, right? So,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I wouldn't want to be Roland Duchane's friend.
Oh, God.
in the Dark Tower. That's kind of the whole point of the books.
Nope.
Can we think of something that isn't like science fiction or high fantasy, such that it takes place in the real world and someone you might actually want to know in person?
No.
Thanks, Lotus. That's why we have you. I would like to be friends with a fantastic version of Lotus Prince who answers the fucking question.
No thanks, I'd rather not.
I would want to be Guts' friend so I could get killed and, like, massacred in a giant eclipse.
Yeah, great. Or people that
friends
Guts
with,
are
like,
seeing at one
be
point.
friends with, like, Odysseus because he's seen some shit and he might have some interesting stories.
Also, you along with him get cast away.
Yeah, literally everybody who was with Odysseus died.
Like, yeah.
Aww. Well, after that,
Yeah, after he came home and he had 20 years with a PTSD, that was pretty cool, I guess. Yeah.
How about
So remember that time those giants tried to eat me? No, the other giants.
Yeah, like I literally, I'm looking at all the stuff on my wall, and I'm like, no, Miracle Man, no.
No. I want to be best friends with Miracle Boy.
I'm Dave from 2001: Space Odyssey, no.
Dave was
yeah,
good.
I can see a copy of Watchmen from here. So like Ozymandias, no. Dr. Manhattan, probably not.
The comedian, no.
Sherlock Holmes, no, he's a drug addict.
Supposedly, the book version of Sherlock Holmes was much more gregarious than most modern interpretations of him, aside from the fact that he did cocaine.
No, he was, and he mentions actually that like he does all these crazy adventures and his jobs and everything, but when he doesn't, his mind is like a mile a minute because he's this hyper awesome detective, and he addresses to Watson directly that he gets super bored when he's on his downtime and he just has nothing to occupy himself, so he does cocaine. Like when Watson first sees him, obviously high on something, Watson is an MD. He was an army surgeon, I believe, or at least an army doctor, and he greatly disapproves, and he's just like, so, what are you high on then? Is it cocaine or is it morphine? And Holmes was immediately like, oh, it's cocaine. And he goes into the whole thing.
Watson might be nice to hang out with. Not the newest version of Watson where he's like an adrenaline junkie, but like the more classic versions of Watson.
Yeah, and not to mention even the classic versions of Watson. Watson is always portrayed as this kind of stout, like, I don't know anything, let's ask Sherlock. But like the whole thing in the books,
he's a doctor.
Yeah, he's a fucking, and he's an army doctor. You know he's in shape. Even if he's been out of the army for a while, he's not like fat now, or at least I don't think he would be. Maybe he's slightly less in shape, but he's still...
Yeah, all that stuff comes from like early like movie and short.
Yeah, and not to mention he's a perfectly intelligent guy. It's just the whole point of these mysteries is the clues are so obtuse and bullshit that like nobody would know this stuff. Like Watson is supposed to play like the audience. Like, you don't know any better than he does. Like, Sherlock Holmes is a genius, and Watson is a normal person. Probably even an intelligent person. But Holmes is, like, on the next level.
Yeah. I can't honestly think of anybody but, like, a side character that's supposed to be a good best friend.
Yeah, pretty much.
You know, like, maybe the only one that I can kind of bear with is Uncle Scrooge. Because he, despite being, you know, a little on the greedy side...
A little.
Well, that's not really his character. He loves money, but he has an altruism about him. He knows when to spend money.
But, like, in the old comics, if you owed him, like, literally a penny, he would chase you.
Yeah, well, no,
but I mean, like, the later comics and the comics that were so famous, there was actually a really interesting video on this by one of the guys in the Cinemassacre channel.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's one of my favorite videos they've done.
Yeah, it's actually excellent. It discusses how most of the best Uncle Scrooge comics have nothing to do with his money, and are mostly about him and Donald and his nephews doing, like, really mundane things.
That is true.
Yeah, so I have the first set of, chronologically, of the Carl Barks Uncle Scrooge comics. That's why I mentioned it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm looking at stuff on my wall, literally, to try to get some ideas here.
Yeah, that's a pretty good choice. Now, like, I was reminded of this also because, like, the DuckTales series has received its reboot, and the first feature-length episode came out.
And apparently it's good.
Last month.
People love it, yeah.
It's pretty good, yeah.
So I would say that, like, those are really... That would be a good choice. Like, the characters in Steven Universe are really cool to have as friends. The world is not a good place, but the main characters are realistic but cool people. With real problems. So, I mean, I'm trying to think of, like, wholesome characters that have, like, a lot of, like, that could bring you up from being down.
A lot of these people would make good friends if they didn't live in the world they lived in.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, that's the thing. Like, I could see One Punch Man, like, being, like, he's very low-key and just lives his life, but, like, his universe is just, like, one of the worst... It's arguably worse than the Berserk universe. Like, it's terrible.
I don't know. They don't really seem like that good of a bunch of people, except maybe King. Like, One Punch Man can't even stand losing at video games very well.
Yeah.
You know,
and he's also a recluse, like, that is really cheap and weird.
That was my favorite, when he's talking about his training regimen. You have to endure extreme heat and extreme cold, and you see his ceiling with the air conditioner and heater turned off with a little sign that says save money. It's like, yes.
So it's reminiscent of, like, if you've watched Hajime no Ippo, the character Takamura, like, he's supposed to be the best pound-for-pound boxer in the entire series, and they balance that by making him just unbearably awful in every other imaginable way. Like...
Yeah, so you hate him, right?
So you enjoy watching him in the ring, but it's satisfying if he gets beaten up a little bit. You're almost, in spite of the fact that he's a protagonist, rooting for him to lose.
Yeah. So, like, I mean, here's the thing. in fiction, like, the whole driving force of almost all fiction is conflict, right? So either a character that needs to grow, or there is a major bad situation that makes people act in a way, in extraordinary ways. So, like, this is a hard question to ask or answer, because, like, usually the main character ends up being somebody, like, you would particularly wouldn't like it, or only would like at a certain point in their journey, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, you know, here's a thought. Maybe like
Han Solo. I would like have Han Solo as a friend.
I would not.
Like, really?
Yeah. Not really. He's
only really good about taking care of himself. Right?
No, he's pretty antisocial. Like, he does everything he does because he generally has to. Like, you know, he secretly has a heart of gold
all the time.
What?
Hangs out with a Wookiee all the time. That's social.
All right. But no, I just had a thought though. Like, the buddy on like every 80s like Full House kind of sitcom ever.
Yeah.
You know, like the friends in those really like
the goofball friend, right? Yeah.
Not even necessarily the goofball, but just like almost anyone on those kinds of like feel good family shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, like, but in sitcoms, oftentimes a lot of the episode plots are driven because the characters are just like assholes.
That is true.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I would not like to
learn
be friends
something.
with Will Smith in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Like, he just like he's like, you know, a lovely, like a lovable rascal, but like, yeah, he does a whole lot of stuff that would just, I mean, that pisses his family off just all the time.
Yeah. So I think we went over that pretty good here.
It was a good question.
Yeah, no, very good question. So that's the show for this week. We want to thank all of our fans that contributed questions, as always. Please keep us supplied with awesome topics by submitting your own questions of your own on YouTube, our YouTube and SoundCloud pages. While there, please give us a thumbs up, likes, 5-star ratings on iTunes, and it keeps us spreading awareness of the show, and I can't read. And any bit of encouragement keeps the show going. You can also catch us on Thursdays on our sister podcast, Reactive Consciousness, the in-depth podcast about this week in our lives. Finally, you can friend me as VyseTheBold, VyseTheBold, on Steam, PSN, Xbox Live, and Twitter.
Never again.
Yeah, I brought that back.
And you can follow me on my YouTube channel, Lotus Prince. You can hit me up on Twitter at Lotus Prince. And finally, if you are interested in seeing my videos early, getting in on exclusive live streams, and even selecting upcoming games for me to Let's Play, then consider swinging by my Patreon, which is patreon.com/LotusPrince.
And as for me, by day I'm just a regular guy, and by night I'm driving my penis car up and down Manhattan.
I guess you are now.
You can also find me as OldManStompy. I have pretty good reception in my car.
Sounds like a hard drive.
Boo.
That was good. I think we can retire this joke now.
Yes, please.
Actually, I think it makes Lotus so viscerally uncomfortable that I might have to...
Son of a bitch.
And you can find Pyrojack Frost in Japan, still. I think that joke is still funny.
You can find him in Japan. Oh, there he is.
Oh, hi.
If you're friends with him on Google Plus and have location sharing enabled, you can go stalk him right now.
All right. Well, that's the show for this week. We'll catch you on Thursday.
Until next time, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.